If you want to know the secrets of existence and the true meaning of life, I can't help you. But if you want some book recommendations, why not try reading the ones I wrote? If you're a fan of giant monster mayhem and anime weirdness, why not try Operation Red Dragon: The Daikaiju Wars Part 1? If horror is more your style, you can't go wrong with The Occult Mafia. Those who enjoy their fantasy with a dark twist may be interested in Emerald of Maddox City. And if you're interested in shared universes, why not read all three? Hop on down to the description for links to all three books on Amazon. Enjoy whichever ones you read, and enjoy the video.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Omni viewer, and as you've no doubt heard by this point, Mechagodzilla is going to be in Godzilla vs. Kong. We get two shots indicating this. One actually at the very beginning of the trailer, where we see his head, though only just barely because it's in the background, somewhat obscured, deliberately I'm sure. And we also have this shot from later in the trailer, clearly showing a semi-blueprint, semi-schematic of Mechagodzilla, that his systems are charged, apparently. So Mechagodzilla is in the movie. Some people have already kind of known that for a while because there were leaks last year, which I deliberately avoided, that said he was going to be in it. But now, really no point in hiding it anymore. Mechagodzilla is going to be in Godzilla vs. Kong. But this comes with the revelation that Godzilla is being depicted in a more antagonistic role. After two films that clearly established him as not attacking humans, even when they attack him, suddenly he's plowing through ships, knocking jets out of the sky, destroying cities. They clearly say that they don't know why he's attacking these cities all of a sudden, still holding out on a Gamera 3 twist, but the fact is, suddenly he's acting like the bad guy. And this has got a lot of people wondering if maybe there's a connection between these two plot points. The most popular theory right now, that what we're seeing in this trailer is not actually Godzilla who is fighting Kong, but actually Mechagodzilla in disguise. The theory is based on what we saw in Mechagodzilla's grand debut, 1974's Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, in which the robot starts out disguised as Godzilla before being exposed as an imposter. And the popular theory, therefore, is that the same thing is applying here, except the purpose is to frame Godzilla and make him look like he's gone from humanity's protector to humanity's destroyer, thus generating a reason to bring Kong off of Skull Island to fight him, and thus what we're really seeing is not Kong fighting the real Godzilla, but rather Kong fighting an imposter, which leaves the question of where the real Godzilla is, if that's the case. What do I think about this theory? I don't buy it. I don't buy it for even a second, really. Now, I've heard the arguments. Some people point to how there are a few slight cosmetic differences between this movie and what we saw in King of the Monsters. Godzilla's spines have gotten a little bigger, his heat ray looks more like a laser than the more fiery version we've seen up to this point, things like that. My response to that is, sometimes aesthetic changes just happen between movies. For example, Godzilla's dorsal fins in King of the Monsters look very different than they did in 2014, and yes, I am aware there's an in-universe explanation for that, as seen in the prequel comic Godzilla Aftershock, but that explanation for the dorsal fins doesn't explain why his feet look different, or why the end of his tail got thicker, or how he had a growth spurt between films. So, like I said, sometimes aesthetic changes just happen without explanation. The fact that this Godzilla might look slightly different from the one in the last film is not necessarily hard evidence in and of itself. As for the argument that it's out of character for this version of Godzilla to be attacking humanity, I agree, and so does the movie. It states outright that, 1, they don't know why he's attacking, 2, there must be something that we don't know about yet, and 3, well, 3 actually isn't from this movie, but more from the previous movie. You may recall the post-credits scene from King of the Monsters tells us that the severed head of Kevin is still out there, and currently, as far as we know, it's in the hands of eco-terrorists. I mean, you do the math. If Godzilla plays the role of Earth's protector, and part of that role requires him to destroy all traces of invaders like Ghidorah, then he's probably looking for the head. And how the head is going to factor in, if it factors in at all, well, that remains to be seen, but that would be my first guess. There is a popular theory that maybe the Ghidorah head is being used somehow to operate Mechagodzilla. I think that is a possibility, certainly a stronger possibility than Mechagodzilla being in disguise this whole time. But either way, I do think there is a reason for Godzilla to be suddenly turning like this. Again, Gamera 3 twist. I am calling it right now. Now, of course, we also have to address the in-universe reason for building Mechagodzilla. By which I mean, if you can make a giant robot, why would you build it in the shape of Godzilla? There's gotta be a reason, and there always has been. Like I said, in the original 1974 film, he was originally meant to frame Godzilla, much like people are theorizing here. In the Heisei film, they were reverse engineering a giant robot that already had a giant monster's structure, Mecha King Ghidorah, so they were basically going with what they knew, and rather than just rebuild a giant dragon, they decided to base it on Godzilla. In the Millennium version, Kiryu, they basically were using DNA computers, which is like sort of a bridging the gap between cloning and building a robot. And since they were using Godzilla DNA, they put that DNA into a body that would make sense for Godzilla's DNA to be in. So they built a giant robot Godzilla. And the Polygon trilogy doesn't count because Mechagodzilla didn't actually do anything in those movies. But for here, we don't necessarily know the reason why they've built a Mechagodzilla yet. So it stands to reason why people would be filling in the gap with, obviously it's to frame Godzilla, because now we've got shots of Godzilla acting out of character. That being said, in order for the disguise to work, they would need to not only be able to build a giant Godzilla-sized robot that can not only look like Godzilla, but also move like him and imitate his powers to a significant degree, but also then be able to generate a large enough artificial skin to cover all of it, and still also look realistic enough that it could pass for the real thing. Even with my arguments about how realism as it applies to the MonsterVerse isn't what people think it is, I still think even that's a stretch. It's one thing to say that aliens did it back in the 70s because they're aliens, of course they'd have that ability. Here, I'm not necessarily sure it would fit the same way. Or maybe they have a perfectly valid explanation for it, if that's the case. But I have my doubts that it is the case. But the biggest reason why I'm skeptical is because if it is true, and the Godzilla we're seeing in this trailer, or at least in most of the shots, really is an imposter, what's the point of the movie? I mean, think about it. Why are we so excited about Godzilla vs. Kong? This right here is the reason. It's the promise of Godzilla and King Kong being on screen together again. This is the crossover we thought we'd never see. The rematch we thought would never happen. Because there was so much red tape put in by Universal, somehow, despite Kong's semi-public domain status. But here it is, it's happening. And the fact is that if this isn't Godzilla, then we're not actually seeing that. The movie is not delivering on its promise. I mean, say what you want about Batman v Superman, it still delivered a fight that involved a literal Batman and Superman fighting each other. If it had turned out that Superman was actually Martian Manhunter in disguise and Superman was off doing something else on the other side of the galaxy and just came back and suddenly was like, hey, what happened? What'd I miss? Then that would just be one more reason for people to hate the movie. So why would they apply that here? It just doesn't make sense. It wouldn't be delivering the very thing that's drawing us in the first place. Regardless of how good the movie might even turn out to be, it could be one of the greatest movies ever, but if it really does pull that twist, it would automatically lose some points just for dishonesty. Having given it some thought, I'd much rather accept the idea that Godzilla has gone rogue and needs to be taken down a few pegs by Kong, then accept that the very premise of the movie is a lie. Because this is what we're coming to see. We're not coming to see Kong fighting an imitator who looks like Godzilla. We're coming to see Kong fight Godzilla. So, yeah, to say that it's Mechagodzilla the whole time, that would be cheap. That would make me feel like I'd been cheated somehow. Because I wouldn't be actually seeing what I came to see. Now, of course, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they really are going for that sort of twist. Maybe it really is Mechagodzilla in disguise and the movie's going to pull a fast one on us. I don't know, but at the same time, I really don't think that's what they would do. I certainly hope that's not what they would do. Now, of course, the fact that Mechagodzilla is there at all does once again open up the possibility that there will be a tag team. That Kong and Godzilla, whichever one of them winds up winning, will find this new threat to both of them. He'll come in and be sort of the doomsday meant to take them both out, and that will get them to at least temporarily put aside their differences and fight this new threat. And I know a lot of people, once again, are dreading the whole Batman v Superman thing. Look, I don't want to get into too much detail about Batman v Superman right here, but if you don't like that movie, fine. That doesn't mean the ideas within that movie are themselves bad. It just means that that time you didn't like the way it played out. It could play out the exact same way here, and if the movie is good, you'll accept it. But all of that remains to be seen. I'm just making this video to say that I really don't think what we're looking at here is Mechagodzilla impersonating Godzilla. I could be wrong, but I highly doubt that's the case. But only time will tell, of course, so that's all I have to say on that at the moment. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off.
If you enjoyed what you just saw, hop on down to the description for links to Patreon, DeviantArt, and all of our social media, as well as links for Operation Red Dragon, The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, The Occult Mafia, and Emerald of Maddox City, 3 original novels I think you'll really enjoy. Thank you all, and we appreciate your support.